For my reflection tonight, I'd like to talk about an idea that I've had to do at school in some way, and I don't know what capacity this is going to work in, but recently we were talking in a staff meeting about different kind of after-school activities or like lunchtime activities for students to get involved with. They always love having open gym, and they like having the computer lab open. Some of them really enjoy going to the computer lab. And I was thinking that it'd be fun to engage students if I feel like taking this burden on some afternoons of the week, kind of offering an independent study sort of deal, looking at music production. Because music production is a way that I use technology a lot, and I've been playing music my whole life, and I love doing stuff on the computer with music, and I'd love to teach my students how to do some of this stuff also. For the record, I'm doing my stuff in a program called Logic Pro, which is very much kind of like big league Apple software. It's very nice, pretty expensive software. But back when I was in high school, most Mac computers came with GarageBand for free. And I think that maybe our computer lab still has a free version of GarageBand. I want to check and see if that's true. If they do have GarageBand, GarageBand is very similar to this layout. It's not nearly as powerful, but you can do very similar stuff. So what I'm going to be showing off tonight is definitely stuff that a student could make in GarageBand. So the basic interface here, this is Logic Pro, and GarageBand looks very similar. You have tracks here, and you can kind of sequence your tracks linearly in time and then play them back. And what I'm doing is I'm working with something called MIDI. MIDI is a way to kind of digitally store music information. You can trigger it with a keyboard, so I could run a keyboard into my computer and play the piano and record it as these MIDI notes. It's like data on the computer. This is a drum machine here. So I could store that as data on the computer, and the computer takes that information and it plays it back. It uses these little impulses to trigger notes from a synthesizer or a drum machine. And this is a way that students can program their own music with drums and synths and stuff like that. They can make their own hip-hop beats, they can make their own electronic tracks. A lot of my students are very into music. Every time I go to the computer lab, they're listening to a lot of music, and a lot of music that they listen to uses electronic production, if it's hip-hop or electronic music. So I think that they would really enjoy getting into this kind of stuff, learning how to use MIDI to make their own electronic music. So this is just a really simple thing that I made. I just kind of threw it together at the last minute. It's pretty cheesy. It's not very good, but it shows just some of the different sounds that you can make using a program like Logic or like GarageBand. So you can see down here is this keyboard and this grid. And so I didn't run a keyboard through my computer. I just used my mouse to kind of draw these MIDI notes like that. And so I ended up making just a silly little drum beat here. It's like an 808 drum machine, and so if I play it, you can hear. So it plays these notes. Each note is a different part of the drum machine, and so they all come together and make just a pretty simple little beat there. And it's something that I could teach a student how to do, maybe something a little bit simpler, but they could build up to something like this pretty easily once they learn the basics of how to draw these MIDI notes. And then you can add other instruments. So here I have a synthesizer that's playing kind of like a bass line. So here's what it sounds like. So again, it's like pretty cheesy, but it works the same way as the drum machine. Each one of these notes, each one of these MIDI pieces of information, it's telling the computer to play that note on a synthesizer. So when I tell it to play, when I hit this play button up here, it plays back what I programmed in. And then I can add a little cheesy synthesizer on top of that. So and then I can add effects to it. So I hadn't prepared anything, but let's see. Just really quick, I'm going to add like some reverb. This is like a pretty simple effect that shows up on a lot of pop music, on a lot of hip hop, and a lot of electronic music. So let's just see what this sounds like. Without the effect, here's that synthesizer. Now I'm going to add the reverb to it. And I can mess around with all these settings, and I can teach the students what different things on here mean. In GarageBand, it's a lot simpler than this. On Logic, it's pretty complicated, but it's stuff that they can learn. If you've never seen any of these words before, or you've never played around with something like this, it can seem intimidating. It's a lot of different parameters to play with, but the more you learn just bits and pieces of it, you can actually get some pretty cool sounds out of it. So I'm just going to play around a little bit with this effect and make it sound pretty cool. So now it's starting to sound kind of like a pop song, right? So if I turn that reverb off, but now the reverb on, it sounds more like it's kind of echoey. So that's it, just like a simple little song that I made. And it's something that I've been using Logic for a while, so I can throw something together like this in like just a half hour or something, not a whole lot of time, to build up something that sounds like this. And I think that I could teach students to put something together like this with some practice, and I think that they would get really into it. That's what I'm on the lookout for these days. It's just ways to get kids using computers in a way that they find interesting, engaging, accessible. I think that Logic would be a little too complicated for my students, but GarageBand is a very stripped down version of this. And I was using it when I was in high school. My friends were using it in high school. I think that some of my students could definitely latch onto this, and it could be a very cool lesson in how to use computer software to make art. Cool. So that's what I've been thinking about these days, is just more cool software to use. I love Scratch. I've been using things like that in the classroom, but I'm looking for more stuff, anything I can do to get the kids engaged with technology. Great.